The crimson-tinged light of 3 setting suns cast long shadows through the crystalline hive structures of Cernak. Nestled within the emerald fir forest of Zalara, the Vernic settlement glowed with bioluminescent warmth as the day's final light filtered through translucent, organic crystals. Within one of these honeycomb-like dwellings, 10-year-old Aiden pressed his bare palm against the living wall, feeling its subtle pulse, so different from the cold metal of the spacecraft that had brought him to this world. "It's responding to you," said Sulla, her voice a melodic trill that Aiden was still learning to interpret. The tall, fur-covered being who had become his adoptive mother over the past few months gestured with elongated fingers toward the wall. "The dwelling recognizes you now." Aiden nodded, pulling his hand back to examine his 5 fingers, so alien among the 6-fingered Vernic. "It feels warm," he said softly, his human vocal cords still struggling with the rolling consonants of the Vernic language. Sulla's fur rippled in what Aiden had come to recognize as an expression of affection. "The crystal hive accepts all who dwell within it, with an open heart." She hesitated, her large, luminescent eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of concern. "Tomorrow is the orphan welcoming ceremony. The clan council will formally recognize your adoption." Aiden's stomach tightened with anxiety. "Will they accept me?" Sulla's mate, Malkar, ducked through the arched doorway, his imposing frame nearly brushing the ceiling. The leader of their family unit had been silent on the matter for days, but now his deep voice resonated through their living space. "Some will question. It is their right," he said, his words measured. "Not since the early colony days has a human child been raised among the Vernic. There are stories." "What stories?" Aiden asked, already dreading the answer. Malkar exchanged a look with Sulla before sitting cross-legged on the floor cushion, bringing himself closer to Aiden's height. "Stories of human predatory instincts, of aggression, of conquest." He reached out, gently placing one 6-fingered hand on Aiden's shoulder. "But I have watched you sleep. I have seen you help Joran and Nella gather crystal berries. These are not the actions of a predator." Aiden swallowed hard. "I'm not dangerous." "We know this," Sulla said, joining them on the floor. "But Tashar and his followers from the neighboring clan have been spreading whispers. They speak of genetic contamination and predator influence. They claim humans cannot be trusted. The council meeting tomorrow will not be easy," Malkar added, his fur rippling with what Aiden recognized as determination. "But we stand with you, Star Child. You came to us from the void, and the stars have chosen you for us." That night, as Zalara's 3 moons cast their glow through the translucent walls of his sleeping chamber, Aiden lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The distant sounds of the fir forest's nocturnal creatures created an alien symphony that still, after months, reminded him of how far he was from Earth. The spacecraft accident had happened so quickly. One moment, he'd been looking out the viewport at the swirling nebula. The next, alarms were blaring and his parents were rushing him to the escape pod. He remembered his mother's last words, "We'll find you," before the pod ejected. Then came the long, silent descent to Zalara's surface, where Malkar had discovered him, half-conscious and terrified, among the wreckage. Would his real parents ever find him? And if they did, would he want to leave the family that had taken him in? With these thoughts, swirling like the distant nebula that had fascinated him on that fateful day, Aiden finally drifted into uneasy sleep. The great gathering hall stood at the center of Cernak, a massive dome of crystalline honeycomb rising from the ground like a natural formation. Sunlight filtered through its walls, creating patterns on the polished stone floor where the clan council had assembled. Hundreds of Vernic sat in concentric circles, their fur colors ranging from deep emerald to pale jade, all eyes focused on the central platform, where Aiden stood with his adoptive family. Elder Rishka, the most venerable member of the council, stepped forward. Her fur had long since faded to a pale mint, and her movements were slow but deliberate. "We gather today to witness the welcoming of the orphaned," she announced, her voice carrying through the hall with surprising strength. "Malkar and Sulla of the Crystal Hive bring forward a child not born of Vernic blood, but found among the stars. They petition to make this human child, Aiden, a true member of our clan." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Aiden tried to stand tall, but he felt painfully exposed, his smooth skin and rounded ears marking him as unmistakably alien among the furred beings. "The ancient laws state that any child orphaned in our territory may be claimed by a willing family," Elder Rishka continued. "However, this case is unprecedented." From the second circle, a bulky Vernic with rich emerald fur rose to his feet. Aiden recognized him immediately. Tashar, leader of the neighboring clan, whose opposition Malkar had warned about. "Respected elder," Tashar said, his voice a deep rumble. "I speak not from prejudice but from concern for our future. Humans are known throughout the galaxy as apex predators. Their history is written in the blood of conquest. Can we truly believe this predator cub will adopt our peaceful ways?" More murmurs, louder now. Aiden felt his cheeks burn with shame and anger. Malkar stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Aiden's shoulder. "Tashar speaks of humans as if they are a single entity, with one mind, one history. Would you judge all Vernic by the actions of the war clans during the dark times? This child has shown nothing but gentleness and a willingness to learn our ways." "Pretty words," Tashar countered. "But the genetic truth remains. The human's very instincts run counter to our harmonious existence. What happens when this cub grows into a full predator? Will we wait until his true nature emerges to protect ourselves?" Several Vernic nodded in agreement. Aiden felt his hope sinking. Then, unexpectedly, a young Vernic female rose from the third circle. Her fur was vibrant, almost teal, and she stood with confident posture. "I am Lyri, daughter of the Stargazers," she announced. "I have observed the human child in the teaching circles. While his appearance is different, his capacity for learning and compassion is not. He has mastered more of our language in 3 lunar cycles than many cubs do in 6. Is this not evidence of his desire to belong?" Elder Rishka nodded thoughtfully. "Your observation is noted. Young Lyri," she turned her gaze back to Aiden. "Child of the stars, what say you in your own defense?" Aiden swallowed hard. He had practiced his words in the Vernic tongue for days, but speaking before the entire clan was terrifying. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon him. "I am Aiden," he began, his voice smaller than he'd hoped. "I lost my human family when our ship was damaged. I don't remember much about Earth. I don't know if I am like other humans." He paused, gathering courage. "But I know I am grateful to Malkar and Sulla for saving me. I want to learn your ways. I want to belong somewhere again." His voice cracked on the last word, and he fell silent, blinking back tears that he knew the Vernic might interpret as weakness. Elder Rishka studied him for a long moment, then addressed the council. "The stars send us children in many forms. Our ancestors taught that to reject a child is to reject the stars themselves." She turned to Tashar. "Your concerns are noted, clan leader, but they do not override our oldest laws." Tashar's fur bristled. "Then let us invoke the ancient right of probation. Let the human child prove himself over one full cycle of the great star. If he shows true harmony with our ways, I will withdraw my objection." Elder Rishka considered this, then nodded. "It is a fair compromise. Aiden will be accepted provisionally into the clan. At the next star ascension ceremony, we will judge his integration." She turned to Malkar and Sulla. "Do you accept these terms?" Malkar exchanged glances with Sulla, who nodded slightly. "We accept," he said, though Aiden could hear tension in his voice. "Then it is decided." Elder Rishka pronounced, "Aiden, foundling of the stars, you are welcomed conditionally into Clan Cernak. May you find harmony in our ways." The assembly dispersed shortly after, but Aiden noticed how many of the Vernic gave him a wide berth, their eyes wary. Only the young female, Leary, approached him directly. "Your accent needs work," she said bluntly, "but your vocabulary is impressive." Aiden blinked in surprise. "Thank you for speaking for me." Leary's fur rippled in what might have been amusement. "I spoke the truth. Besides, I've never met a human before. You're interesting." She tilted her head. "I could help you learn more about our ways. If you want to pass the probation, you'll need a friend who knows the forest." For the first time since the ceremony began, Aiden felt a glimmer of hope. "I'd like that." "Good. Meet me at the eastern edge of the settlement at first light tomorrow." Without waiting for a response, she turned and bounded away, leaving Aiden to wonder if he had just made his first Vernic friend. As the family walked home, Aiden noticed Malkar and Sulla exchanging worried glances. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I was accepted, wasn't I?" Sulla's fur rippled with concern. "Conditionally, yes, but Tashar's influence is greater than we anticipated. The probation period will not be easy." Malkar nodded gravely. Tashar did not speak only for himself today. There are others who share his concerns. "What will happen to me if I fail the probation?" Aiden asked, dreading the answer. Malkar's expression was solemn. "Let us focus on ensuring you succeed." It wasn't an answer, but it told Aiden everything he needed to know. The following weeks blurred together in a flurry of lessons and challenges. True to her word, Leary became Aiden's guide to Vernic culture. Each morning before the first sun rose, they would meet at the edge of the fir forest, where she taught him the basics of Vernic survival skills. "These crystal berries are safe for you," she explained one morning, pointing to small, translucent fruits that grew in clusters on the lower branches of the fir trees. "These others might look similar, but see the blue tinge? They contain compounds that would make your strange human stomach very unhappy." Aiden carefully harvested the safe berries, placing them in the woven pouch at his waist. "How do you know what's safe for humans?" Leary's fur rippled in what Aiden had come to recognize as her equivalent of a shrug. "The clan healers analyzed your biology after you arrived. I asked for the information. Knowledge is survival." "Thank you," Aiden said, genuinely moved by her thoroughness. "Don't thank me yet. Climbing is next, and you have no natural claws." Despite his disadvantages, Aiden proved a quick study. His lighter frame and flexible joints gave him advantages the Vernic lacked, allowing him to navigate the higher, thinner branches that would not support his mentor's weight. Within a month, he could identify most edible plants, track small forest creatures, and navigate by the positions of Zalara's three sons. At home, Sulla taught him the intricate customs and traditions of the Vernic. He learned the proper way to greet elders, with a 3-pulse rhythm tapped on his chest, the significance of fur grooming, a sign of deepest trust, and the complex hand gestures that supplemented verbal communication. Joran and Nella, his adoptive siblings, initially regarded him with cautious curiosity, but gradually warmed to his presence. Joran, the older of the two, taught Aiden how to carve small tools from the crystalline wood of fallen fir trees. Nella, only a year older than Aiden, showed him how to communicate with the semi-sentient dwelling crystals that formed their home. "You have to project your feelings," she explained, placing her furry hand over his. "The crystals respond to emotional resonance." Aiden concentrated, trying to project gratitude and belonging toward the living wall. To his amazement, the crystal warmed beneath his palm and emitted a soft, pulsing light. "It worked!" he exclaimed. Nella's fur rippled with pleasure. "See? You're not so different." But outside the safety of his adoptive family, Aiden faced constant reminders of his otherness. In the communal learning circles, some young Vernick refused to sit near him. Adults would sometimes halt conversations when he approached, only to resume in hushed tones after he passed. Worse were the pamphlets that began appearing throughout the settlement, crude drawings depicting humans as vicious predators, with warnings about genetic purity and the predator mind. Though no one claimed responsibility, Aiden suspected Tashar's influence. His suspicions were confirmed when, about 2 months into his probation, he overheard a conversation while gathering water at the community well. Tashar says humans once hunted species to extinction for sport, a Vernick was saying to his companion. He says it's only a matter of time before this one shows its true nature. But he's just a cub, the other replied uncertainly. Cubs grow, and Tashar has proof, records from human conflicts where they slaughtered each other by the millions. Aiden froze, the water vessel clutched in his hands. Was that how the galaxy saw humans? As mindless killers? Is that what he would become? He was so lost in these dark thoughts that he didn't notice the group of young Vernac approaching until they surrounded him. Well, if it isn't the hairless predator, said the largest, a stocky male whose fur was an unusually dark green. Gathering water or plotting conquest? Aiden recognized him as Drav, one of the older students from the learning circle. I'm just getting water for my family, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Your family, Drav scoffed. You mean the Vernick you fooled into sheltering you? He stepped closer, looming over Aiden. My father says humans are manipulative, that you're just waiting for the right moment to show your true nature. Aiden's heart raced, but he remembered Malkar's advice. Never show fear to a bully. Your father is wrong. I'm not planning anything. Prove it, Drav challenged. Prove you're not a predator. I don't have to prove anything to you, Aiden replied, trying to step around the group. Drav blocked his path. Actually, you do. We've prepared a little test. He nodded to his friends, who parted to reveal a small cage containing a forest creature, a 6-legged, furry animal, similar to a squirrel. Predators hunt. So if you're not a predator, you won't know how to kill. Aiden stared in horror as Drav opened the cage and grabbed the struggling creature. What are you doing? It's simple, Drav said, holding the frightened animal out to Aiden. Kill it, like the predator you are. Show us your true nature. No, Aiden backed away. I'm not going to hurt it. Drav's fur rippled with satisfaction. Afraid to reveal yourself? Or maybe you're just waiting for bigger prey. He glanced meaningfully at his friends. Aiden felt trapped. If he refused, they would claim he was hiding his predatory nature. If he complied, well, he wouldn't. Let the animal go. It hasn't done anything wrong. Neither have we, Drav countered. Yet my father says your kind would hunt us for sport if given the chance. That's not true, Aiden protested, his voice rising with emotion. I would never hurt any of you. Then prove it. Kill this lesser creature to show you have no taste for sentient blood. Aiden stood his ground, though his heart hammered in his chest. No, killing an innocent animal doesn't prove anything except that I can be bullied. And I can't. For a tense moment, the standoff continued. Then, unexpectedly, a familiar voice cut through the tension. What exactly is happening here? Leary emerged from between two crystal dwellings, her posture radiating authority despite her youth. Drav's confidence faltered. Just a conversation with a human. A conversation that requires surrounding him and torturing wildlife? Leary approached, taking the small animal from Drav's grasp. The creature immediately calmed in her gentle hold. This looks more like the behavior of predators to me. We were just, Drav began, testing his nature. Yes, I heard. Leary's fur rippled with disapproval. Consider your test failed. Not by him, but by you. She turned to Aiden. Come. Your water vessel is full. Grateful for the rescue. Aiden followed Leary away from the well, conscious of Drav's glare burning into his back. Thank you, he said once they were out of earshot. Leary released the small creature, which scampered into the underbrush. Drav is repeating his father's prejudice without understanding. His father follows Tashar blindly. She glanced at Aiden. But you should know. This won't be the last test. Tashar's influence grows, and there are those who actively wish to see you fail your probation. Aiden nodded soberly. What would happen if I fail? Leary hesitated. Best case, relocation to another colony with a more diverse population. Worst case. She didn't finish, but her expression told Aiden everything. I won't fail, he said with more confidence than he felt. Good, because tomorrow, we start the hard lessons. True to her word, Leary's training intensified, beyond simple forest craft. She began teaching Aiden the deeper aspects of Vernic culture, their spiritual connection to the stars, their collaborative hunting techniques, and most importantly, their peaceful conflict resolution methods. Vernac were not always peaceful, she explained, as they sat high in the branches of a fir tree, watching the sunset. Our ancient history includes clan wars that nearly destroyed our civilization. We learned, through painful experience, that cooperation ensures survival better than competition. Is that why some fear humans? Aiden asked. Because they think we haven't learned that lesson? Leary's fur rippled thoughtfully. Perhaps. Or perhaps they fear you because you remind them of their own violent past. It's easier to see barbarism in others than to acknowledge it in yourself. Aiden pondered this wisdom, wondering if it might hold the key to changing minds. Meanwhile, at home, tensions were growing. Malkar returned one evening with his fur bristling with anger, a rare display from the normally composed clan leader. Tashar has gone too far, he announced to the family. He's distributing historical accounts of human conflicts, selectively edited to show only the most violent aspects. He's painting all humans as warmongers. Sulla placed a calming hand on her mate's arm. What can we do? I've requested an audience with the Council of Elders. This goes beyond legitimate concern and into deliberate prejudice. Malkar turned to Aiden. I'm sorry, Starchild. You should not have to prove your worth because of the actions of humans you've never even met. Aiden swallowed hard. But I do have to prove it, don't I? No matter what the council says. Malkar's expression softened. You are wiser than your years. Aiden. Yes, unfortunately, minds are rarely changed by decrees alone. That night, unable to sleep, Aiden slipped out of the family dwelling and into the moonlit forest. He needed space to think, to process the growing hostility around him. As he wandered the familiar paths, he found himself drawn to a small clearing where he and Leary often practiced tracking skills. To his surprise, the clearing wasn't empty. Leary sat cross-legged at its center, her face turned up to the stars. Couldn't sleep either? She asked without looking at him. Aiden approached, settling beside her. How did you know it was me? Your footsteps, quieter than an adult Vernac, heavier than a forest creature. She finally turned to him. You're troubled. It wasn't a question, but Aiden nodded anyway. I don't know how to fight this prejudice. No matter what I do, Tashar and his followers will see only what they expect to see. Leary was silent for a long moment. There's something I need to show you, she finally said, rising to her feet. Something that might help. Curious. Aiden followed her deeper into the forest, beyond their usual training grounds. They hiked for nearly an hour, the moons providing just enough light to navigate by, until they reached what appeared to be a sheer rock face covered in fir moss. Leary approached the wall and pressed her hand against a specific patch of moss. To Aiden's amazement, a section of the rock face slid aside, revealing a narrow passage. "What is this place?" he whispered. "History," Leary replied cryptically, leading him into the passage. The tunnel was short, opening into a chamber that took Aiden's breath away. Unlike the organic, crystalline architecture of the Vernick settlement, this room was clearly artificial. Metal walls lined with control panels and screens, most dark with age, but a few still glowing with faint power. This is human technology," Aiden gasped, recognizing the design from dim memories of the spacecraft he'd arrived on. "A research outpost," Leary confirmed. "From the early colonial days, before the Great Harmony was established, my ancestor discovered it and passed down the secret through our family line." Aiden moved through the room in awe, his fingers tracing over consoles and equipment that connected him to his heritage. "Does anyone else know about this?" "No, and it must stay that way." Larry's expression was serious. "Knowledge is power, Aiden, and in the wrong hands, this technology could disrupt the balance we've worked so hard to achieve." "Then why show me?" "Because you might need it." She gestured to a small device on one of the consoles. "This is what I wanted you to see. It's called a flash pulse device. It emits an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disrupts energy weapons and communication systems." Aiden examined the device cautiously. "You think I'll need to defend myself?" "I think Tashar is desperate to prove his theories about humans correct. And desperate people take desperate actions." Leary's fur rippled with concern. "The Star Ascension ceremony is approaching, the end of your probation period. It would be the perfect time for Tashar to force your hand." The implication chilled Aiden. "You think he might attack me, or my family?" "I think he might create a situation where you have no choice but to act in self-defense, and then use that action to prove his claims about human aggression." She placed a six-fingered hand on his shoulder. "I'm teaching you about this place, not so you can use the technology offensively, but so you have options beyond fight or flight." Aiden nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of what Leary was entrusting him with. "Thank you for trusting me with this." "You've earned my trust," she said simply. "Now, let me show you how this works, just in case." As the Star Ascension ceremony approached, the atmosphere in Cernak grew increasingly tense. Aiden noticed more whispers, more sidelong glances as he moved through the settlement. The propaganda had become more sophisticated too, no longer crude drawings but elaborate narratives about human conquest and aggression, carefully crafted to instill fear. Malkar's petition to the Council of Elders had resulted in a formal warning to Tashar about spreading divisive information. But the damage was already done. The seed of suspicion had been planted and was now growing beyond anyone's control. 3 days before the ceremony, Aiden was helping Sulla prepare the family's offering for the ritual, a complex arrangement of crystallized fruits and woven fur moss, when Joran burst into the dwelling, his fur bristling with alarm. "Tashar's followers are coming," he panted. "A large group, approaching from the north. They're carrying traditional hunting spears." Malkar immediately rose from his work table. "Alert the clan guards. Sulla, take the children to the community shelter." "No," Aiden said, surprising himself with his firmness. "This is about me. I should face them." "Absolutely not," Sulla replied, her tone brooking no argument. "You are a child under our protection." "But that's exactly why they're coming," Aiden insisted. "They want to protect you from me. If I hide, it only confirms their fears." Malkar and Sulla exchanged troubled glances. Before they could respond, another commotion erupted outside. Through the crystal walls, they could see a group of Vernick approaching, led by none other than Tashar himself. "Malkar of the Crystal Hive," Tashar called, his voice carrying easily to their dwelling. "We come with concerns that cannot wait for the ceremony. Send out the human child so that we may speak with him." Malkar moved to the entrance, positioning himself squarely in the doorway. You have no authority to demand anything of my family. Tashar, if you have concerns, bring them to the Council of Elders through proper channels. Tashar's fur bristled with agitation. The council moves too slowly. Meanwhile, we have discovered evidence that cannot be ignored. He held up what appeared to be a small metallic object. This human tracking beacon was found in the northern fir forest. It bears the same markings as the escape pod that brought the human to our world. Aiden felt a surge of hope. A tracking beacon? Could that mean his parents were looking for him? This proves nothing except that the child's people may be searching for him, Malkar replied, echoing Aiden's thoughts. Or it proves that the human is the advanced scout for an invasion force, Tashar countered. We demand the right to question him about his true purpose here. The confrontation was drawing a crowd. Vernick from nearby dwellings emerged to watch, their expressions ranging from concern to outright fear. Sulla placed a protective hand on Aiden's shoulder. "Stay inside," she whispered. But Aiden had had enough of hiding, enough of being feared. Gently removing Sulla's hand, he stepped forward to stand beside Malkar in the doorway. "I'm not a scout or an invader," he said, his voice clear and steady despite his racing heart. "I'm just a kid who lost his parents and found a new family." Tashar's eyes narrowed. "A convenient story. But if you truly have nothing to hide, you will submit to questioning under the truth stones." Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. The truth stones were ancient artifacts, rarely used except in the most serious clan disputes. They were said to resonate with falsehood, glowing brightly when detecting deception. "He will do no such thing," Malkar protested. "The stones are not to be used on children." "The human is not a Vernick child," Tashar insisted. "The normal protections do not apply." Elder Rishka's voice cut through the tension. "Enough!" The elderly Vernick made her way through the crowd, leaning heavily on a staff of crystalline wood. "Tashar, you overstep your bounds. The human child is under the protection of our laws until the Star Ascension ceremony. If you have evidence of wrongdoing, present it to the full council." Tashar's fur bristled with frustration, but even he would not openly defy an elder. "Very well, but I warn you all, when the human's true nature is revealed, it may be too late for warnings and counsels." With a final glare at Aiden, Tashar and his followers withdrew, leaving behind a settlement buzzing with speculation and fear. "This is worse than I thought," Malkar said grimly, once they were back inside. "Tashar is not merely spreading fear. He's actively seeking confrontation." "The tracking beacon," Aiden said. "Could it really be from my parents' ship?" Sulla's fur rippled with sympathy. "It's possible, Starchild. But whether it is or not, Tashar will use it to fuel his narrative." That night, Aiden made a decision. After the household had settled into sleep, he slipped out of his sleeping chamber and made his way silently through the dwelling. He was nearly at the exit when a voice stopped him. "Where are you going, brother?" Aiden turned to find Nella watching him, her large eyes luminous in the darkness. "I need to find that tracking beacon," he whispered. "If it's really from my parents' ship, it might help me prove I'm not a threat." Nella hesitated, then nodded. "Wait here." She disappeared into her sleeping chamber, returning moments later with a small pouch. "Guiding crystals," she explained, handing it to him. "They'll help you find your way back home." Touched by her concern, Aiden impulsively hugged his adoptive sister. Nella stiffened in surprise. Physical embraces were rare among the Vernick, but then her fur rippled with affection. "Be careful," she whispered. The northern fir forest was dense and unfamiliar. Aiden had never ventured this far with Leary, and the moonlight created confusing shadows among the tall, fir-covered trees. He relied on the guiding crystals Nella had given him, which glowed faintly when pointed toward the settlement. After several hours of searching, Aiden was about to give up when he spotted something unnatural among the organic shapes of the forest. A glint of metal. Heart racing, He approached carefully, pushing aside low-hanging branches to reveal a small clearing. What he found made his blood run cold. The tracking beacon Tashar had displayed was there, but it wasn't alone. The clearing had been set up as an elaborate trap, with what appeared to be human artifacts strategically placed to suggest a hidden camp. Some items Aiden recognized from old Earth movies: a combat knife, what looked like ammunition casings, even a tattered military-style jacket. It was all staged, a setup designed to prove Tashar's claims about human aggression. And Aiden had walked right into it. Before he could retreat, a rustling in the underbrush alerted him to another presence. He froze, hoping it was just a forest creature. It wasn't. From the shadows emerged a large, six-limbed predator that Leary had warned him about, a Thrax beast, one of the few dangerous predators in the fir forest. Its scaled hide glistened in the moonlight, and its multiple eyes fixed on Aiden with hungry interest. Aiden's mind raced. Thrax beasts rarely ventured this close to settlements unless lured. This was no coincidence. It was the next phase of the trap. If Aiden fled back to the settlement with the beast in pursuit, it would create exactly the chaos Tashar needed to paint humans as dangerous. Remembering Leary's lessons, Aiden slowly reached for a nearby branch, never breaking eye contact with the predator. Thrax beasts were territorial, but not inherently aggressive unless challenged. If he could establish himself as non-threatening. The beast growled, a low rumble that vibrated through the clearing. It took a step forward, its powerful muscles tensing for a spring. In that moment, Aiden made a decision. Dropping the branch, he reached instead for the small device hidden in his tunic, the flash pulse device Leary had shown him in the hidden research station. He'd taken it as a precaution, never expecting to actually use it. As the Thrax beast launched itself toward him, Aiden activated the device. A brilliant pulse of light and energy erupted, washing over the clearing. The beast froze mid-leap, its nervous system temporarily disrupted by the electromagnetic pulse. It crashed to the ground, twitching but incapacitated. Aiden didn't wait to see how long the effect would last. Grabbing the fake tracking beacon as evidence, he fled back toward the settlement, following the glow of Nella's guiding crystals. He was halfway home when a hand reached out from behind a tree, grabbing his arm. Aiden nearly cried out in alarm before recognizing Leary's familiar form. "What are you doing out here?" she hissed. "It's dangerous." Breathlessly, Aiden explained what he'd found. The staged camp, the Thrax beast, the obvious trap. Leary's fur bristled with anger. "This goes beyond propaganda," she said grimly. "Tashar is risking lives now. We need to bring this evidence to the council immediately." "Will they believe me?" Aiden asked. "Or will they think I staged it all to discredit Tashar?" Leary's expression softened. "That's why you have friends. Aiden, you're not facing this alone." Together, they made their way back to the settlement, where they found not the quiet of night, but a settlement in uproar. Vernick were gathering in the central plaza, their voices raised in alarm. "What's happening?" Aiden asked a passing Vernick, who recoiled at the sight of him. "Tashar has called an emergency council meeting," the Vernick replied warily. "He claims to have proof of human sabotage." Aiden and Leary exchanged alarmed glances. "We're too late," Leary muttered. "He's already making his move." They rushed to the great gathering hall, where indeed the council had assembled despite the late hour. Tashar stood at the center of the hall, addressing the gathered elders and clan representatives. "The evidence is clear," he was saying, as Aiden and Leary slipped in through a side entrance. "The human has been communicating with others of his kind, preparing for their arrival. The artifacts we discovered in the northern forest prove this beyond doubt." Elder Rishka looked troubled. "These are serious accusations. Tashar, where is this evidence now?" Tashar gestured to one of his followers, who stepped forward with a bundle wrapped in fur cloth. "Here, respected elder, We found these items carefully hidden in a camouflaged location. As the follower unwrapped the bundle, revealing the planted evidence, Aiden stepped forward. "That's a lie," he called out, his voice echoing through the hall. All eyes turned to him. "Those items were planted to frame me. I found the site tonight, and it was clearly staged." Tashar's fur bristled with outrage. "The human dares to accuse me of deception? How convenient that he discovered this supposed frame-up. Were you there to remove evidence of your true plans, human?" "He was there because I told him about the beacon," Leary interjected, stepping to Aiden's side. "And he found not just your planted evidence, but also the Thrax beast you lured to the area." Gasps rippled through the assembly. Luring dangerous predators near settlements was a serious offense. "Baseless accusations," Tashar scoffed. "Where is your proof?" Aiden held up the tracking beacon he'd taken from the site. "This isn't even real human technology. It's a modified Vernic communication node, painted to look like human equipment. A real tracking beacon would have active power signatures and quantum-encrypted transmissions." The confident technical details, remembered from his life before Zalara, caused murmurs of uncertainty among the assembly. Elder Rishka gestured for the device. "Let me see this alleged beacon." As Aiden approached to hand it over, Tashar moved with unexpected speed. He grabbed Aiden's arm roughly, wrenching it behind his back. "Enough deception," he growled. "The time for talk is over. The human presence threatens our very existence, and I will not stand by while the Council is blinded by sentiment." "Release him immediately!" Malkar's voice boomed from the entrance, where he stood with Sulla and several clan guards. "You violate our most sacred laws. Tashar!" "I protect them!" Tashar shouted back, his grip on Aiden tightening painfully. "And I will prove to all of you the true nature of humans." With his free hand, Tashar produced a small energy blade, a ceremonial weapon used in the most solemn Vernic rituals. He held it to Aiden's throat. "Now, we will see how the predator responds when threatened. Will your true nature emerge, human? Will you show these naive fools what your kind is capable of?" Time seemed to slow for Aiden. He could feel the heat of the energy blade near his skin, see the wild light in Tashar's eyes, hear the shouts of alarm from around the hall. In that moment, he understood. This had been Tashar's plan all along, not just to discredit him, but to provoke him into violent resistance that would prove his predatory nature. Aiden took a deep breath and made his choice. Instead of struggling, he relaxed completely in Tashar's grip and looked directly into the eyes of Elder Rishka. "I am not a predator," he said calmly, though his heart raced with fear. "I won't fight, even to save myself." Tashar's fur bristled with frustration. "You think passive resistance will save you? It only proves your cunning." "No," came a new voice, strong and clear. "It proves his wisdom." The crowd parted to reveal Joran and Nella, accompanied by several other young Vernic, including, surprisingly, Drav, the bully from the well. "We followed Aiden into the forest," Joran announced. "We saw everything. The staged camp, the lured Thrax beast, all of it. And we saw how Aiden could have killed the beast but chose only to incapacitate it temporarily." "A convenient story from his adoptive siblings," Tashar sneered. "It's the truth." Drav stepped forward, his fur rippling with what might have been shame. "I was there too. Tashar recruited me and my friends to help set the trap. He promised us recognition from the Council for saving the clan from human infiltration." Shocked murmurs swept through the assembly. Tashar's grip on Aiden loosened slightly, as he realized his position was crumbling. "This is absurd," he blustered. "Why would you betray your own kind, Drav?" "Because I saw the human choose mercy when I gave him none," Drav replied simply. "At the well, when my friends and I tried to force him to kill a harmless creature, he refused. No predator shows such restraint." Elder Rishka had heard enough. "Release the child, Tashar, now." For a moment, it seemed Tashar might defy even the Elder's direct command. His grip tightened again, and Aiden winced in pain. Then, something unexpected happened. Leary stepped forward, her posture confident, and spoke in a formal, ritual cadence. "I invoke the right of star witness. Let the stars themselves judge between truth and falsehood." The hall fell silent. The right of star witness was an ancient tradition, rarely invoked, where disputes would be settled during the star ascension ceremony, believed to be when the cosmic forces were most attuned to truth. "The ceremony is tomorrow night," Leary continued. "Let Tashar present his evidence, let Aiden defend himself, and let the stars guide the council's judgment." Elder Rishka considered this, then nodded slowly. "The right is properly invoked and cannot be denied. Tashar, you will release the human child and present your case at tomorrow's ceremony. Any further action against him before then will result in your immediate exile." Tashar's fur bristled with suppressed rage. But even he would not defy such an ancient custom. Slowly, he released Aiden, who immediately stepped away toward Malkar and Sulla. "Very well," Tashar growled. "Tomorrow night, the truth will be revealed to all." As the assembly dispersed, tension still thick in the air, Aiden found himself surrounded by his adoptive family and friends. "Are you hurt?" Sulla asked, examining him with concern. "I'm okay," Aiden assured her, though his arm ached where Tashar had gripped it. Malkar's expression was grave. "Tomorrow will be dangerous. Tashar has too much pride to back down now, even with his deception exposed." "What will happen at the ceremony?" Aiden asked. Lyrie answered, her fur rippling with determination. "The star ascension is when the 3 moons align perfectly with the primary sun. It's said to be when the stars are most attentive to our world. By invoking the right of star witness, I've ensured that the entire clan will bear witness to both Tashar's claims and your defense. But it also means Tashar has one last chance to prove his theories," Malkar added grimly. "He won't give up easily," Leary agreed. "And cornered predators are the most dangerous of all." The irony of her statement wasn't lost on Aiden. "So what do we do?" "We prepare," Malkar said firmly, "and we trust in the truth." That night, as Aiden tried to sleep, his mind raced with possibilities and fears. What if Tashar's deception wasn't fully exposed? What if the clan chose to believe the worst about humans? About him? Would he be exiled? Sent away from the only family he had left? And beneath these immediate concerns lay a deeper question. If his human parents ever did find him, would he even want to leave? Zalara had become his home, the Vernic his people. The thought of returning to a human world he barely remembered filled him with a strange melancholy. With these troubled thoughts, he finally drifted into uneasy sleep, dreaming of stars that watched and judged from the silent depths of space. The day of the star ascension dawned with unusual clarity. All 3 of Zalara's suns rose in perfect sequence, their light casting long, multi-hued shadows through the crystal dwellings of Cernak. The settlement buzzed with anticipation. The ceremony itself was a major event in Vernic culture, but the added drama of the Star Witness invocation had the entire clan on edge. Aiden spent the day in quiet preparation with his family. Sulla helped him don the traditional ceremonial garments, robes woven from the softest fur moss, dyed in patterns that represented his adoptive family's lineage. Despite the circumstances, there was something profoundly moving about wearing these symbols of belonging. "Whatever happens tonight," Sulla told him as she adjusted the final folds, "know that you are our star child. Nothing can change that." Malkar had been unusually quiet, disappearing for several hours in the morning before returning with a solemn expression. "I have spoken with as many clan members as possible," he told them. "Many are uncertain, caught between Tashar's warnings and their own experiences with Aiden. Tonight, they will have to choose which to believe." As sunset approached, the family made their way to the ceremonial grounds, a natural amphitheater at the highest point of the settlement, where the crystalline structures of the dwellings gave way to an open circle of polished stone. Already, hundreds of Vernic had gathered, their fur rippling in patterns of excitement and apprehension. Aiden noticed Leary with her family, her posture proud, despite the whispers that followed her. By invoking the right of star witness, she had tied her own reputation to his cause. If he were judged unfavorably, she would share in his disgrace. At the center of the amphitheater stood 3 tall crystals, each aligned to catch the light of one of Zalara's moons. As the sun set and the moons began to rise, these crystals would channel their light into a central focal point, the place where judgments were traditionally rendered. Elder Rishka took her position at the head of the council circle. "Tonight, we gather for the sacred star ascension," she announced, her voice carrying clearly across the hushed crowd. "When the 3 moons align, their combined wisdom will illuminate our path forward. But first, we must address the matter of the star witness invocation." She gestured to Tashar, who stepped forward into the central space. He had adorned himself in the traditional garb of a clan protector, an ancient role from the days when Vernic still faced external threats. "Honored clan," he began, his deep voice resonating with conviction. "I stand before you not as an accuser, but as a guardian of our future. The human child among us represents an unknown element, a potential threat to everything we have built." He moved with deliberate steps around the circle, making eye contact with many in the audience. "Humans are apex predators. This is not prejudice but biological fact. Their history is one of conquest and domination. Even if this particular human shows no aggressive tendencies now, what of the future? What of his inevitable growth into adulthood when instinct overcomes training?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Tashar continued, his confidence growing. "I have been accused of deception, of staging evidence. These are desperate attempts to distract from the central truth. Humans are not compatible with our peaceful way of life. Their very presence invites conflict." He turned to face Aiden directly. "I do not blame the human child for what he is. A predator cannot change its nature. But neither can we ignore the risk he represents, especially now that others of his kind appear to be searching for him." At this, Aiden's head snapped up. Was there actually truth to that part? Could his parents really be looking for him? "The choice before us is clear," Tashar concluded. "We must protect our future by removing this threat from our midst. When the moons align tonight, I ask the stars to guide us toward the wisdom of caution, rather than the folly of misplaced compassion." As Tashar stepped back, Elder Rishka nodded to Aiden. The accused may now speak in his defense. Aiden felt hundreds of eyes upon him as he moved to the center of the circle. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to stand tall, to meet the gaze of those who would judge him. "I came to Zalara by accident," he began, his voice smaller than he'd hoped, but growing stronger with each word. "I lost my human family in the void between worlds, but I found a new family here, among the Vernic." He glanced at Malkar and Sola, drawing strength from their supportive presence. Tashar speaks of human history as if it is only conquest and violence. But he doesn't tell you about human art, human music, human healing. He doesn't tell you about human capacity for love, for sacrifice, for growth. Aiden turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. "Yes, humans have done terrible things. So have Vernic, in your ancient past. But like you, we learn, we change, we evolve." He faced Tashar directly now. "You call me a predator, but when you held a blade to my throat, who showed aggression? When you lured a dangerous beast to trap me, who demonstrated predatory behavior?" Tashar's fur bristled with anger, but before he could respond, a commotion erupted at the edge of the amphitheater. A group of Vernic warriors escorted several bound figures into the circle, Tashar's closest followers. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" Elder Rishka demanded. One of the warriors stepped forward. "Respected elder, we discovered these individuals making preparations to disrupt the ceremony. They carried energy weapons and this." He held up a small device that Aiden recognized immediately, a more powerful version of the flash pulse device he had used in the forest. "They plan to trigger a settlement-wide power disruption during the ceremony," the warrior continued. "And, in the chaos, to stage an attack that would appear to come from the human." Gasps and exclamations swept through the crowd. Tashar's fur stood on end with shock and fury. "This is absurd," he shouted. "I gave no such orders." But his followers, faced with the evidence of their capture, began to crumble. One by one, they admitted the plot to create a situation where Aiden would appear threatening, forcing the clan to expel him for their own safety. As the confessions unfolded, the light in the amphitheater began to change. The 3 moons of Zalara had risen fully now, their combined light striking the tall crystals and converging at the center of the circle, exactly where Aiden stood. A hush fell over the assembly. The star alignment was a rare astronomical event, but even rarer was for it to coincide so perfectly with a judgment. According to Vernic tradition, this was a sign. The stars themselves were rendering their verdict. Aiden stood bathed in the combined moonlight, its silver-blue radiance illuminating him against the darkening sky. The effect was striking. The human child, smooth-skinned among the furred Vernic, glowing with the light of 3 worlds. Elder Rishka rose to her feet, her aged face solemn. "The stars have shown their will. The human child stands in their light, unblemished by shadow. Tashar's deception is revealed, and with it, the prejudice that has clouded our judgment." She turned to Aiden. "Aiden, foundling of the stars, you have proven yourself worthy of clan membership. Your probation is ended. You are now, by the witness of the stars themselves, a true child of Clan Cernak." The pronouncement was met with a moment of stunned silence, then a rising tide of approval from most of the gathered Vernic. Not all. Some still looked uncertain or disapproving, but enough that Aiden felt a wave of relief wash over him. Tashar, however, was not ready to accept defeat. With a roar of defiance, he lunged toward Aiden, an energy blade appearing in his hand. "I will not let you infect our people," he cried. Several things happened at once. Malkar moved to intercept Tashar, but was too far away. Leary cried out a warning, and Aiden, acting on instinct, reached into his ceremonial robe and activated the flash pulse device he had kept as a precaution. The pulse erupted in a brilliant flash, temporarily neutralizing the energy blade and causing Tashar to stumble. In the moment of confusion, clan guards surrounded him, restraining him before he could make another attempt. "Proof!" Tashar shouted, struggling against his captors. "The human uses technology against us, just as I warned." "Technology used in self-defense," Elder Rishka replied firmly. "Against your unprovoked attack. You have violated our most sacred customs. Tashar, you have attempted violence during the star ascension itself." She turned to the assembly. "The judgment is clear. Tashar and those who conspired with him will be exiled from Clan Cernak until such time as they demonstrate true understanding of our ways." The guards began to lead Tashar away. As they passed Aiden, the disgraced clan leader hissed, "This isn't over, human. Your kind will show their true nature eventually." Aiden met his gaze steadily. "I hope someday you'll see that nature isn't destiny. We all choose our path." Something flickered in Tashar's eyes. Not acceptance. Not yet. But perhaps the first seed of doubt in his own certainty. Then he was gone, led away to begin his exile. The ceremony continued. The traditional rituals of the star ascension, bringing a sense of normalcy after the drama. Aiden stood with his family, officially recognized now as Aiden of Clan Cernak, child of Malkar and Sulla. The formal adoption ritual involved the sharing of fur moss tea and the presentation of a family crystal, a small shard that would grow over time, eventually forming part of Aiden's own dwelling when he came of age. As the ceremonial portion concluded and the gathering transitioned to celebration, Aiden found himself surrounded by well-wishers. Some were genuinely welcoming, others clearly making an effort to overcome lingering doubts. He appreciated both equally. True change he was learning often began with simple willingness. Lyrie approached, her fur rippling with satisfaction. "Well done, Star Child. You faced your trial with courage." "I couldn't have done it without you," Aiden replied sincerely. "Your friendship, your teaching, everything." "Don't become sentimental," she chided, though her tone was warm. "This is just the beginning. Now you have to live up to the faith the clan has placed in you." "I will," Aiden promised. "I'm going to start teaching human language, human culture, but also human technology that can benefit the clan." Lyrie's eyes widened. "You would share such knowledge?" "Knowledge isn't meant to be hidden," Aiden said, echoing her own words from their time in the research outpost. "And maybe by understanding each other better, we can prevent another Tashar from spreading fear." The celebration continued late into the night, the three moons of Zalara watching over the gathering like distant, benevolent eyes. Aiden found moments to connect with many clan members, including, surprisingly, Drav, who approached with awkward contrition. "I was wrong about you," the young Vernick admitted. "I let Tashar's words influence me instead of judging for myself." "We all make mistakes," Aiden replied. "What matters is learning from them." As the celebration wound down and families began returning to their dwellings, Aiden found a quiet moment with Malkar and Sulla. The three sat on a high outcropping overlooking the settlement, watching the moons begin their slow descent. "What happens now?" Aiden asked. "With Tashar gone, will things change?" Malkar's fur rippled thoughtfully. "Some minds have been changed, others merely silenced. True acceptance will take time, but you have earned your place here, Aiden. No one can deny that now. And what about my human parents? Do you think they're really looking for me?" Sulla placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's possible. The beacon Tashar found was false, but the concept itself may not be. If they search long enough, they may find their way to Zalara." Aiden nodded slowly. "And if they do? Then you will have a choice to make," Malkar said simply. "And whatever you choose, we will support you. That is what family means." The conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion from the settlement below. Shouts and pointing drew their attention to the night sky, where an unusual light was moving, too structured to be a meteor, too small for a natural stellar phenomenon. "A ship," Malkar said, rising to his feet. "An interplanetary vessel." Aiden's heart leaped into his throat. Could it be? After all this time? As they hurried back to the settlement, the light grew larger, resolving into the unmistakable shape of a spacecraft. It was not large, a rescue vessel rather than a colony ship, and it was on a direct course for Cernak. By the time they reached the central plaza, much of the clan had assembled, watching the approaching ship with a mixture of wonder and apprehension. For many of the younger Vernick, this was their first sighting of off-world technology. Elder Rishka had taken charge, issuing calm instructions to maintain order. When she saw Aiden, she beckoned him forward. "It seems your story may take another turn, Starchild," she said, her aged eyes kind. "Are you prepared?" Aiden looked around at the gathered Vernick, his adoptive family, Lyrie, the friends he had made, even those who had doubted him, but now watched with curiosity rather than fear. Then he looked back to the approaching ship, which might contain the parents he had thought lost forever. "I don't know," he answered honestly, "but I know where I belong." As the ship's landing lights illuminated the settlement, casting long shadows across the crystal dwellings, Aiden felt Malkar's strong hand on one shoulder and Sulla's gentle touch on the other. Together, the three of them stepped forward to greet whatever the future might bring. In that moment, with stars overhead and family beside him, Aiden knew with perfect clarity that home wasn't a place or even a species. It was wherever love took root and grew, reaching across the void between worlds just as surely as it bridged the differences between hearts. Where love dwells, he whispered in the ancient Vernic tongue, there is home. And as if in answer, the three moons of Zalara seemed to shine a little brighter, casting their light on a future where understanding might finally overcome fear, and differences might be celebrated rather than feared, one star child at a time.